It was almost midnight. The room was quiet. Outside, the world was sleeping. Inside a small office in California, one man sat alone in front of a glowing computer screen. Papers covered the desk. Coffee cups stood empty. The air felt heavy. His name was Elon Musk. At that moment, he was not the richest man in the world. He was not one of the most famous entrepreneurs on earth. He was not the owner of successful companies that millions of people admire today. Instead, he was a man who was running out of money. Every number on the screen told the same terrifying story. There was almost nothing left. His bank accounts were nearly empty. His companies were collapsing. His dream was falling apart. One more failure. Just one. And everything he had spent years building would disappear forever. Imagine that for a moment. What would you do if every person around you believed you were about to fail? What if newspapers called you foolish? What if experts laughed at your ideas? What if your friends quietly wondered if you had made the biggest mistake of your life? Would you keep fighting, or would you finally give up? December 2008 became one of the most dangerous moments in Elon Musk's entire life. SpaceX had already failed 3 rocket launches. 3. Not 1. Not 2. 3. Each explosion cost millions of dollars. Each failure made investors lose confidence. Each headline became more painful than the last. People began asking the same question: why does he keep trying? At the very same time, Tesla was burning through money faster than anyone expected. The global financial crisis was shaking the entire economy. Banks were collapsing. Businesses were shutting down. Investors were becoming afraid. Nobody wanted to take risks, especially not on an electric car company that had never made a profit, or a private rocket company trying to compete with governments. Too many people. Both companies looked impassable. Some employees secretly searched for new jobs. Suppliers worried they would never get paid. Friends advised Elon to protect what little money he had left. Even members of his own family worried about him. But Elon made a decision that shocked almost everyone. Instead of saving himself, he put nearly everything he still owned back into his companies. Almost every dollar. He later admitted that he had reached the point where he struggled to pay his personal bills. Imagine risking your last savings on dreams that everyone else believes are impossible. Would you do it? Would you bet everything? Tonight, we are going to discover exactly how that happened. But this story does not begin with rockets. It does not begin with electric cars. It does not begin with billion-dollar companies. It begins much earlier, with a lonely little boy. A boy who often felt different. A boy who spent more time with books than with friends. A boy who was bullied so badly that one attack sent him to the hospital. That quiet child would eventually dream bigger than almost anyone alive. And those dreams would change transportation, space exploration, artificial intelligence, energy, and perhaps even the future of humanity itself. Welcome to StorySpeak English. If English is your second language, you are in exactly the right place. Here, you improve your English naturally by listening to fascinating true stories. As you follow this documentary, you will discover useful vocabulary, natural sentence patterns, and clear pronunciation through context, not through boring grammar lessons. Don't worry if you don't understand every single word. Just keep listening. Your brain learns best through repetition, curiosity, and great storytelling. So relax. Listen carefully. Imagine every scene. And let's travel back in time. Back before the headlines. Back before the billions. Back before the rockets reached space. Back to South Africa. Back to where everything began. The story begins on June 28, 1971. The place was Pretoria, South Africa. Pretoria was known for its wide streets, warm sunshine, and government buildings. At first glance, it looked peaceful. Families lived ordinary lives. Children rode bicycles. Schools welcomed students every morning. People went to work and returned home for dinner. Life appeared simple. But South Africa during the 1970s was also a country divided by apartheid, a system of racial segregation and unequal laws. The political situation shaped the country in many ways. Although young Elon was more focused on the world inside, his own imagination than on politics, into this complicated world, Elon Reeve Musk was born. His father, Elon Musk, worked as an engineer. Engineering requires careful thinking. It requires solving problems. It requires understanding how machines work. His mother, May Musk, was a model and a dietitian. She balanced creativity with discipline. From both parents, Elon inherited qualities that would later shape his life. From one side, technical thinking. From the other, confidence and determination. But no one could have guessed what the future held. As a small child, Elon was unusually quiet. He was not the loudest child in the room. He did not constantly seek attention. He often sat silently, thinking. Sometimes he became so deeply focused that people believed he was ignoring them. His parents occasionally wondered whether he had heard what they had said. There were moments when Elon stared into space for so long that adults became concerned. Was something wrong? Could he hear properly? The family even arranged medical examinations because they worried he might have a hearing problem. Doctors eventually discovered something surprising. His hearing was perfectly normal. The real reason was much simpler. When Elon became interested in an idea, the outside world almost disappeared. His imagination became louder than the voices around him. That intense focus would become one of his greatest strengths. But during childhood, it also made him seem different. And children often notice anyone who seems different. School was difficult, very difficult. Many children enjoy playground games. Many laugh together during lunch. Many build friendships that last for years. For Elon, school often felt like entering a battlefield. He was small. He was shy. He rarely fought back. He preferred reading to sports. He loved science more than popularity. Some classmates respected that. Others did not. Bullies quickly noticed him. They mocked him. They laughed at him. They pushed him day after day, week after week. Sometimes they stole his belongings. Sometimes they surrounded him. Sometimes they simply wanted someone weaker to hurt. Bullying is more than physical pain. It slowly attacks confidence. It makes children afraid to go to school. It can make them believe they do not belong anywhere. Elon later described school as one of the hardest parts of his childhood. One particular attack became unforgettable. A group of older boys surrounded him. There was nowhere to run, no teacher close enough to stop them. The attack became violent. The boys beat him badly. Then they pushed him down a flight of concrete stairs. His body crashed into the steps below. He lay there, injured. Even after he reached the bottom, the beating continued. The injuries were severe enough that he needed hospital treatment. For a long time afterward, he struggled to recover physically. Some reports say he experienced pain for years after the attack. Think about that. A child should feel safe at school. Instead, he felt fear. Many people would have become bitter. Many would have stopped believing in themselves. But Elon searched for another world. Not a real place. A world inside books. Books became his shelter. Books never laughed at him. Books never judged him. Books opened doors that bullies could never close. He read constantly. Morning, afternoon, night, weekends, vacations. Whenever he had free time, he picked up another book. His appetite for knowledge seemed endless. He loved science fiction. He loved fantasy. He loved history. He loved biographies. He loved science. He read stories about impossible inventions. He imagined distant planets. He explored imaginary civilizations. He asked questions that many adults never considered. What makes a civilization successful? Can humanity survive forever on only one planet? How can technology improve life? Those questions stayed with him. One astonishing story from his childhood has become famous around the world. Elon reportedly read nearly the entire Encyclopedia Britannica while he was still very young. Think about how enormous that task is. An encyclopedia is not a novel. It is not a simple adventure story. It contains thousands of pages filled with facts, history, physics, animals, geography, medicine, astronomy, engineering, language, culture, almost every subject imaginable. Most adults never read even one complete volume. Yet, Elon kept reading, page after page, volume after volume. His curiosity seemed impossible to satisfy. Knowledge became his greatest treasure. He later joked that books had become his friends. For many lonely children, stories offer comfort. For Elon, stories offered possibilities. Then, another discovery changed everything. Computers. Today, computers are everywhere. Phones, schools, homes, cars, offices. But during the early 1980s, owning a computer was unusual. Most families did not have one. When Elon first encountered programming, it felt like discovering a new language. Unlike people, computers never bullied him. Unlike classmates, computers rewarded patience. If you gave the machine correct instructions, it obeyed. If something failed, you searched for the mistake. You solved the puzzle. You try it again. Programming became another escape. He received a computer and taught himself to code using a programming manual. There was no YouTube, no online courses, no artificial intelligence to answer questions, no discussion forums, only books, curiosity, practice, and determination. The manual estimated that learning the language would take many months. Some learners needed half a year. Others needed even longer. Elon finished it in just a few days. Then he wanted something bigger. He decided to create his own video game. Imagine being only 12 years old. Most children are thinking about toys, television, playing outside. Elon was building software. The game was called Blastar. It was a simple space game. Players controlled a spaceship. They flew through space. They destroyed enemy ships. It was not visually impressive by today's standards. But remember the time. A 12-year-old had designed it himself. Even more remarkable, he sold the game's code to a computer magazine for about $500. $500 for a young boy in the early 1980s. That was an extraordinary achievement. Without realizing it, he had completed his first technology startup. He had built a product. He had sold it. He had earned money through innovation. Years later, the world would celebrate billion-dollar companies. But the pattern had already begun. Learn, build, improve, create, sell, repeat. Still, success did not suddenly solve his problems. School remained difficult. Loneliness remained. Questions about the future remained. No one around him could imagine that this quiet teenager would someday build companies that challenged the world's biggest industries. No one knew that the lonely boy reading books late into the night would one day dream of taking human beings to Mars. At that moment, he was simply a curious child, searching for a place where his imagination could finally belong. As Elon entered his teenage years, one thought became stronger every year. He wanted more. Not more money. Not more popularity. More opportunity. He loved South Africa in many ways. It was the country where he was born, where he grew up, and where he discovered his passion for reading and computers. But he also felt something was missing. He looked around and saw limits. He wanted to build technologies that could change the future. He wanted to invent. He wanted to create companies. He wanted to work with the brightest engineers in the world. He wanted to be close to places where new ideas became reality. When he looked at magazines, books, and scientific discoveries, one country appeared again and again: the United States. Many of the world's greatest technology companies were there. The space program was there. Silicon Valley was growing into a center of innovation. Some of the world's best universities were there. To Elon, America looked like the place where impossible dreams could become possible. But getting there was not simple. His family life was becoming increasingly difficult. His parents divorced when he was young. Like many children whose parents separate, Elon found himself trying to understand two different worlds. For a period of time, he chose to live with his father. Years later, Elon would describe that decision as one of the hardest experiences of his life. He has spoken publicly about feeling emotionally unhappy during those years and about the difficult relationship he had with his father. At the time, however, he was still just a teenager trying to figure out life. Books remained his escape. Computers remained his refuge. Dreams remained his fuel. There was another reason he wanted to leave South Africa: military service. During that period, white South African men were generally required to perform military service after reaching a certain age. Elon did not want his future to be defined by that path. He wanted to build, not fight. He believed his purpose was somewhere else. So he started looking for another route. His mother had been born in Canada. That small family connection opened an important door. Because of her Canadian citizenship, Elon could also pursue Canadian citizenship. Canada was not his final destination. It was the bridge, the first step toward the future he imagined. Leaving home is never easy. Imagine being 17 years old, leaving behind familiar streets, leaving friends, leaving family, leaving the place where every childhood memory was created. There is excitement, but there is also fear. What if things do not work out? What if the dream is larger than reality? Most people would hesitate. Elon did not. In 1989, at the age of 17, he boarded a plane and left South Africa. He was not carrying enormous wealth. He was not famous. He did not have investors waiting for him. He had something less visible: hope. When he landed in Canada, reality arrived quickly. Dreams sound beautiful. Reality often feels uncomfortable. He stayed with relatives while trying to establish himself. He worked different jobs to support himself. Some of those jobs were physically exhausting. One summer, he worked at a lumber mill. The work demanded strength and endurance. The days were long. The pay was modest. He also worked cleaning boilers inside a lumber plant. It was one of the most dangerous jobs available. Workers had to climb into large industrial boilers covered with soot, dirt, and ash. The heat was intense. The space was cramped. Every shift left him exhausted. Many people would ask, why would someone willing to dream about rockets spend hours cleaning industrial boilers? Because every journey has a beginning. Success rarely starts inside a beautiful office. Sometimes it starts in uncomfortable places. Sometimes it starts with dirty hands. Those difficult jobs taught Elon something valuable. No honest work is beneath you when you are building your future. Every paycheck mattered. Every dollar helped. Every experience made him stronger. He wasn't embarrassed by hard work. He expected it. While earning money, he continued searching for the next step in his education. Eventually, he enrolled at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. For the first time, he found himself surrounded by students from many different backgrounds. University life was exciting. It was also challenging. He was far from home. Money remained tight. He had to think carefully about every expense. Many students spend weekends relaxing. Elon often spent weekends thinking about ideas. Business ideas, technology ideas, scientific ideas. Even during casual conversations, his mind drifted toward the future. Friends noticed something unusual. Most students asked, "What job can I get after graduation?" Elon asked, "What problem should humanity solve next?" That difference would shape everything that followed. One afternoon, he asked himself a simple question: what will most affect the future of humanity? He did not start with, "What business will make the most money?" He started with impact. After reading and thinking deeply, he believed several fields would transform civilization. The Internet, sustainable energy, space exploration, artificial intelligence. These ideas would remain with him for decades. At the time, however, they were only dreams inside the notebook of a young university student. No one could imagine how seriously he would pursue them. After 2 years at Queen's University, another opportunity appeared. The University of Pennsylvania in the United States accepted him. The country he had dreamed about for years was finally within reach. His next journey was about to begin. Moving to the United States felt like another fresh beginning. The University of Pennsylvania was one of America's most respected universities. Students came from around the world. Competition was intense. Professors expected excellence. For Elon, it was exactly the kind of environment he wanted. He did not choose only one subject. He chose 2: physics and economics. Some people wondered why. Why study both? Physics teaches how the universe works. Economics teaches how people make decisions. One explains nature. The other explains markets. Elon believed that changing the world required understanding both. He loved physics because it rewarded truth. Nature does not care about opinions. If your calculations are wrong, reality proves you wrong. Physics teaches humility. It teaches precision. It teaches patience. Economics fascinated him for another reason. Brilliant inventions change little if nobody can afford them. Technology needs business. Ideas need investment. Innovation needs customers. By combining science with economics, Elon hoped to build products that could actually reach millions of people. University life was not glamorous. Money was still limited. Instead of spending freely, Elon searched for creative ways to earn extra income. One of the most memorable examples became almost legendary among his classmates. He and another student rented a large off-campus house. The rent was expensive. Most students would simply divide the cost. Elon had another idea. On weekends, they turned the house into a party venue. Large student parties filled the building. Hundreds of people sometimes attended. The entrance fees helped cover the rent. It was business thinking in everyday life. See a problem? Find an opportunity. Solve it creatively. That habit never left him. Even while studying, he continued reading far beyond his assigned textbooks. He explored engineering, energy systems, rocket science, programming, history, philosophy, business strategy. He was still the same curious reader from Pretoria. Only now, the questions had become much larger. How can civilization produce cleaner energy? How can transportation become more efficient? Can private companies reach space? Can humanity survive on more than one planet? These were unusual questions for a university student. Many classmates focused on exams. Elon focused on the future. He often spoke about problems that seemed decades away. Climate change, renewable energy, interplanetary life. At the time, these topics were far from mainstream. Most people were not discussing electric vehicles every day. Few imagined reusable rockets. The internet itself was still in its early years. Yet Elon believed the world was standing at the beginning of enormous technological change. As graduation approached, many students searched for secure careers. Large companies offered stable salaries, good benefits, predictable futures. That path appealed to many people. It did not appeal to Elon. He wanted uncertainty. He wanted creation. He wanted to build something that did not yet exist. His professors recognized his intelligence. His classmates recognized his ambition. But almost nobody could predict just how far that ambition would reach. After graduating in Ijujuwu, Elon received acceptance into a PhD program in applied physics at Stanford University. For many people, this would have been the perfect opportunity. Stanford was one of the world's greatest universities. A doctorate promised prestige, research opportunities, academic respect. It seemed like the obvious choice. But history sometimes changes because someone makes an unexpected decision. Elon arrived at Stanford. He attended for only a very short time. Then he left. Just days after beginning the program, people were shocked. Why would someone walk away from one of the world's best universities? Because another revolution had already begun. The Internet. Most people saw websites. Elon saw the beginning of an entirely new economy. He believed that if he stayed in graduate school, he might miss one of the greatest technological opportunities in history. It was a risky decision. There were no guarantees, no certainty, no promise of success, only possibility. Sometimes, the safest path is not the one that changes your life. For Elon Musk, leaving Stanford was not the end of his education. It was the beginning of a completely different classroom. The classroom of entrepreneurship. The classroom where failure is expensive. The classroom where every decision matters. And very soon, he would discover that building a company is much harder than earning a university degree. The year was Ijujuwu. The Internet was still young. Today, opening a web browser takes only a second. We search for directions, order food, watch videos, and talk to people around the world without thinking twice. But in 1995, the Internet felt mysterious. Most people had never used it. Many families did not own a computer. Businesses often asked the same question. Why would anyone need a website? To many people, the Internet looked like a strange experiment. To Elon Musk, it looked like the future. Leaving Stanford after only a few days shocked many people. His professors believed he had enormous academic potential. Friends wondered whether he was making a terrible mistake. A PhD offered security. Starting a company offered uncertainty. But Elon believed history was moving too quickly. He later explained that moments like these happen only a few times in a lifetime. When a revolutionary technology appears, those who act early have a rare opportunity. He wanted to be one of them. There was only one problem. He had almost no money. Imagine arriving in Silicon Valley with huge dreams, but very little cash. No luxury apartment, wealthy investors waiting with millions of dollars. Only determination. Elon joined forces with his younger brother, Kimball Musk. The brothers shared something important. Neither of them was afraid of hard work. Together, they began developing an idea. What if local businesses could be found online? Today, this sounds completely normal. We search for restaurants, hotels, repair shops, doctors, coffee shops. Everything is online. But in the mid-1990s, most businesses depended on newspapers and printed phone books to reach customers. The Musk brothers believed that would change. Their company became known as Zip2. The idea was ambitious. Create online business directories. Add digital maps. Help newspapers and local businesses connect with customers through the internet. Simple today, revolutionary then. Starting the company was incredibly difficult. Money disappeared quickly. Computers were expensive. Office space costs money. Every small expense mattered. To save every possible dollar, Elon lived inside the office. Literally, he slept on a couch. Sometimes he slept on the floor. He showered at a nearby public facility. His office became his bedroom. His workplace became his home. During the day, he wrote software. At night, he continued writing software. Then, he slept for a few hours. Then, he repeated the process. 7 days a week. Many people talk about working hard. Few actually live like this. Imagine waking up inside your office every morning. Imagine eating inexpensive meals because every saved dollar keeps your company alive one more day. Imagine wondering every evening whether you will still have a business next month. That was Elon's reality. He became obsessed with improving the software. Every bug mattered. Every customer mattered. Every new feature mattered. Perfection was impossible. Progress was essential. As the company's main programmer, Elon spent endless hours writing code. Programming is not simply typing. It is solving hundreds of problems every day. One missing symbol can stop an entire program. One mistake can break everything. Sometimes, Elon worked so long that he barely noticed the sunrise. Outside, Silicon Valley buzzed with excitement. New startups appeared every week. Investors searched for the next great company. The internet economy was expanding rapidly. Yet success was never guaranteed. For every company that succeeded, many disappeared forever. Zip2 struggled to attract customers. Business owners remained skeptical. Some asked, "Why should my restaurant need a website?" Others believed newspapers would never lose their importance. The Musk brothers heard rejection after rejection. Many meetings ended with polite smiles, but no contracts. Still, they refused to quit. They visited businesses again. They improved their product again. They made another presentation. Then another. Persistence slowly began producing results. A few newspapers became interested. Then, larger newspapers noticed. Gradually, the company gained credibility. Investors finally saw potential. Money began arriving. The tiny startup slowly transformed into a growing technology company. Growth created new challenges. More employees joined. More managers arrived. Professional investors wanted experienced leadership. Like many young founders, Elon discovered that building a company required more than technical talent. Leadership, management, communication, negotiation, every new stage demanded new skills. Eventually, outside investors decided to bring in an experienced executive as CEO. Elon remained deeply involved in the company, but he was no longer leading it. That decision disappointed him. He believed strongly in his own vision, yet he also understood that the company needed to survive. Sometimes, entrepreneurship requires accepting decisions you do not fully agree with, even when they hurt. Years later, Elon would remember this lesson. He would become far more determined to keep control over the direction of his future companies. Then came the breakthrough. In 1999, computer manufacturer Compaq agreed to purchase Zip2. The price stunned many people. Approximately $307 million in cash, along with stock options. For a young entrepreneur who had once slept on an office floor, it felt almost unbelievable. Elon personally received more than $20 million before taxes. At only 27 years old, he was suddenly wealthy. Many people would have stopped there. They would have bought luxury homes, expensive cars, a comfortable life. They would have retired early. But Elon saw something different. Money, in his mind, was not the finish line. It was fuel. Fuel for a much larger dream. He had won his first major battle. The much harder battles had not even begun. Imagine earning millions of dollars before your 30th birthday. How would you celebrate? Perhaps a vacation. Perhaps a mansion. Perhaps complete financial security. Elon did buy a few things he had dreamed about, including a sports car. But compared with what came next, those purchases were small. Instead of protecting his fortune, he invested most of it. Again, this pattern would become one of the defining characteristics of his life. He rarely viewed money as something to keep. He viewed it as something to deploy. His next target was an industry almost everyone used: banking. Think back to the late 1990s. Most people still visited physical banks. Checks were common. Paper documents filled filing cabinets. Sending money often took days. Online banking barely existed. Many people distrusted financial transactions on the internet. Elon believed that would eventually change. He imagined a future where people could manage their money entirely online. The idea sounded radical. Many experts believed customers would never trust internet banking. Security concerns dominated every conversation. People feared hackers. They feared fraud. They feared losing their savings. Yet Elon believed technology could solve these problems. In 1999, he founded X.com, an online financial services company. The name was unusual, short, simple. Easy to remember. X.com aimed to reinvent banking for the digital age. Customers could open accounts online, transfer money, manage finances without visiting a traditional bank. Today, these services seem ordinary. At the time, they felt revolutionary. Building trust proved difficult. Money is deeply personal. People are naturally cautious. Convincing someone to trust a completely online bank required more than clever advertising. It required reliability, excellent software, strong security, and patience. Competition was intense. Another company, Confinity, had also recognized the opportunity. Confinity focused on making digital payments easier. One of its products allowed users to send money electronically using email addresses. This feature quickly became popular. Rather than continuing a costly battle, the two companies merged. In 2000, the combined business possessed stronger technology, more customers, and greater financial resources. Eventually, the payment service became its most successful product. Its name was PayPal. Today, PayPal is recognized around the world. Millions of people use it to send and receive money. Small businesses depend on it. Freelancers rely on it. Online stores process payments through it every day. But during those early years, nothing felt certain. Inside the company, disagreements emerged. Leadership teams argued about strategy. They debated software choices. They debated growth plans. Rapid expansion created pressure. Pressure created conflict. Elon, serving as CEO, strongly supported one technical direction for the company's infrastructure. Other executives preferred a different path. While Elon was away on his honeymoon, the board of directors made a dramatic decision. They replaced him as CEO. Imagine learning that your own company had removed you from its top leadership position. Many founders would have walked away in anger. Some would have sold their shares immediately. Some would have publicly attacked their colleagues. Elon chose another approach. Instead, he remained the company's largest individual shareholder. He continued supporting PayPal's success. His personal disappointment did not erase his belief in the company's future. That decision required emotional discipline. Sometimes, leadership means accepting setbacks without abandoning your long-term vision. The company continued growing. More online buyers adopted PayPal. Internet shopping expanded rapidly. Digital payments became increasingly common. Then, another opportunity appeared. In Arliningar, the online marketplace eBay announced that it wanted to acquire PayPal. The purchase price reached approximately $1.5 billion in stock. For Elon, who still owned the largest individual share, the acquisition transformed his finances once again. After taxes, he received well over $100 million. At 31 years old, he possessed enough money to live comfortably for the rest of his life. He never needed to start another company, never needed another investor, never needed another sleepless night. Most people would have considered the journey complete. For Elon Musk, it was only the beginning. Standing at the top of one mountain, he looked toward an even higher one. He asked himself a question that would shape the next 20 years. If I already have enough money, what problems should I try to solve next? His answers would surprise almost everyone. Electric cars, private spaceflight, solar energy, artificial intelligence, human life on Mars. To many people, these ideas sounded like science fiction. To Elon Musk, they sounded like tomorrow. At the beginning of the 21st century, Elon Musk had something that most entrepreneurs never achieve: freedom. He had earned more money than he had ever imagined as a child. He no longer needed to worry about paying rent. He no longer needed to sleep on an office floor. He no longer needed to convince investors that he could build a successful company. Financially, he had won. So why didn't he stop? This is perhaps one of the most important questions in Elon Musk's entire story. Many people build businesses because they want wealth. Many dream of reaching a point where they never have to work again. For Elon, however, money had never been the final destination. It was a tool, a powerful tool. He often asked himself a different question: what problems are most important for humanity? It was the same question he had asked himself years earlier as a university student. His answer had not changed. There were several areas that could shape the future of civilization. The internet had already begun changing the world. Now he wanted to focus on something even bigger: space. To understand his decision, we have to go back to his childhood. Remember the lonely boy in Pretoria? The boy who spent countless hours reading science fiction? The child who imagined distant planets and future civilizations? Those dreams had never disappeared. They had simply grown stronger. Elon believed that one planet was not enough for the long-term survival of humanity. Think about it. Throughout history, civilizations have disappeared because of wars, diseases, natural disasters, and environmental changes. What would happen if one global catastrophe threatened everyone on Earth? If humanity lived only on one planet, every person would face the same danger. But if people eventually lived on multiple planets, human civilization would become more resilient. It was an enormous idea. Some people called it inspiring. Others called it unrealistic. Many laughed. Mars? Really? The nearest planet that might one day support human settlements? It sounded like something from a Hollywood movie, not a business plan. Yet Elon believed that history often begins with ideas that sound impossible. He wanted to inspire the world to dream bigger. He believed that humanity needed exciting goals. Goals that encouraged young people to study science, engineering, and mathematics. At first, he imagined supporting existing space projects. He hoped someone else would build the rockets. Perhaps governments. Perhaps established aerospace companies. Perhaps another entrepreneur. But after months of research, he became frustrated. Launching rockets remained incredibly expensive. The costs were so high that ambitious missions seemed almost impossible. He traveled to Russia with a small group of colleagues, hoping to purchase refurbished intercontinental ballistic missiles that could be converted for peaceful space research. The meetings did not go well. Some reports described the negotiations as dismissive. The prices were higher than expected. The discussions ended without an agreement. On the flight home, Elon began calculating. He opened a spreadsheet. He examined the cost of raw materials: aluminum, titanium, copper, carbon fiber, electronics. Something surprised him. The materials themselves represented only a small fraction of the final price of a rocket. The manufacturing process, supply chain, and traditional aerospace methods made rockets enormously expensive. He asked himself a simple but revolutionary question: what if rockets could be built differently? One question. That question changed everything. Many people assume breakthrough ideas arrive like lightning. In reality, they often begin with careful thinking. Elon believed that if rockets could be built more efficiently and eventually reused, the cost of reaching space could fall dramatically. If costs dropped enough, entirely new possibilities would appear. Scientific missions, satellite launches, space stations, eventually, human missions to Mars. The dream no longer depended on buying someone else's rockets. He would build them himself. Friends thought he had lost his mind. "You've already succeeded," they said. "Why risk everything again?" The warnings were understandable. The aerospace industry had defeated companies with decades of experience. Governments spent billions of dollars on space programs. How could a software entrepreneur compete? He had never built a rocket. He had never managed an aerospace company. He had never launched anything into orbit. The odds seemed impossible. But Elon had developed a habit throughout his life. When experts declared something impossible, he asked for evidence. Sometimes they were right. Sometimes they were simply repeating assumptions. He believed first principles, thinking breaking problems down into their most basic truths could reveal new solutions. Instead of asking, "How have rockets always been built?" he asked, "What does physics actually require?" That way of thinking would become one of his greatest strengths. In May 2002, he officially founded Space Exploration Technologies Corp. The world would soon know it by a much shorter name: SpaceX. Its mission sounded almost unbelievable. Reduce the cost of space travel. Develop reusable rockets. Make humanity a multi-planetary species. Many newspapers reacted with skepticism. Some aerospace veterans quietly smiled. Others openly criticized the idea. One experienced engineer reportedly remarked that rockets were among the hardest machines humans had ever created. He was absolutely right. A rocket must survive extreme temperatures, extreme pressure, extreme vibration, extreme speed. One tiny mistake can destroy years of work. One failed calculation can lead to catastrophe. Starting a rocket company from scratch was like deciding to climb the tallest mountain in the world without ever having climbed a smaller one. Yet Elon moved forward anyway. He invested around $100 million of his own money into SpaceX. Not investors' money. His money. The fortune he had earned through years of work. Once again, he was risking almost everything. History was about to test whether courage alone would be enough. Starting SpaceX was exciting. Keeping SpaceX alive was much harder. In the beginning, the company had almost nothing. No famous launch record. No established reputation. No large government contracts. Only a small group of engineers who believed extraordinary things might be possible. Elon searched for talented people everywhere. He wanted engineers who loved difficult problems, people willing to question old assumptions, people willing to work incredibly hard. Many of those who joined SpaceX accepted lower salaries than they could have earned elsewhere. Why? Because they believed in the mission. Building rockets is unlike building ordinary machines. Every single component matters. A tiny valve, a small bolt, a fuel pump, a computer chip, a software command. If one part fails, everything may fail. The engineers often worked late into the night. Weekends disappeared. Vacations became rare. Elon himself maintained an intense schedule. He expected excellence from everyone, including himself. Sometimes that demanding leadership inspired people. Sometimes it exhausted them. Working at SpaceX was never easy. But those who stayed often described the excitement of solving problems that few humans had ever attempted. The company's first rocket was called Falcon 1. Compared with today's massive launch vehicles, Falcon 1 was relatively small, but its importance was enormous. If Falcon 1 succeeded, SpaceX might survive. If it failed repeatedly, the company might disappear forever. Years of preparation led to the first launch attempt. The location was Omelek Island, part of the Kwajalein Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. The island was remote. Equipment had to be transported across great distances. Weather created additional challenges. Every launch required careful planning. Finally, the countdown began. Engineers watched computer screens. Technicians checked final systems. Everyone knew years of effort depended on the next few minutes. Then, the engines ignited. The rocket rose into the sky. For a brief moment, hope filled the air. Then, disaster struck. A fuel leak led to an engine fire. The rocket lost control. The mission ended in failure. Silence. No celebration. No victory. Only disappointment. Newspapers quickly reported the unsuccessful launch. Critics pointed to the obvious conclusion. Building rockets is incredibly difficult, maybe impossible for a startup. But inside SpaceX headquarters, something different happened. Instead of searching for someone to blame, the engineers searched for answers. They reviewed data, examined every sensor, analyzed every second of the flight. Failure became information. Every mistake revealed something valuable. Months later, Falcon 1 launched again. The team believed they had solved the previous problems. This time would be different. The rocket lifted off. Hope returned. Then another technical problem appeared. The mission failed again. 2 launches, 2 failures. Pressure increased dramatically. Outside the company, skepticism grew louder. Some journalists wondered how long SpaceX could survive. Potential customers hesitated. Investors watched carefully. Inside the company, employees continued working. They redesigned systems, improved engines, strengthened procedures, prepared for another attempt. Failure is painful. Repeated failure can become crushing. Imagine spending years solving one of the world's hardest engineering challenges, only to watch your work explode in minutes. Many companies would have closed. Many founders would have accepted defeat. Elon refused. He often reminded his team why they had started. Not to achieve something easy, but to accomplish something meaningful. Then came the third launch in August 2008. By now, enormous pressure surrounded the company. Another failure could destroy confidence completely. The countdown reached 0. Falcon 1 lifted into the sky. For a moment, everything appeared normal. Then, during stage separation, the first stage made unexpected contact with the second stage. The rocket lost stability. Mission failed. Again. 3 launches. 3 failures. The emotional impact was devastating. Some engineers cried. Others simply stared at their screens in disbelief. Years of effort, hundreds of thousands of working hours, millions of dollars, gone. Outside observers believed the story was over. Many newspapers predicted the company's collapse. Competitors quietly assumed SpaceX would soon disappear. Even some supporters wondered whether the dream had finally reached its end. Elon gathered the team. He did not pretend the situation was easy. He knew the truth. Money was running out. Very quickly, there was enough funding for only one more launch. 1. If the 4th flight failed, SpaceX would almost certainly go bankrupt. And there was another problem growing at exactly the same time. Far away from the launch site, another company Elon had founded was also fighting for survival. Its name was Tesla. Both companies were burning through cash. Both needed enormous investments. Both stood on the edge of disaster. The stage was set for one of the most extraordinary periods in modern business history. Everything Elon Musk had built, everything he had earned, everything he believed, would soon be tested like never before. While SpaceX was fighting to keep its rockets from exploding, another battle was unfolding hundreds of miles away. This battle took place on roads instead of launch pads. Its enemy was not gravity. It was an entire industry, the automobile industry. Today, when someone mentions an electric car, many people immediately think of Tesla. But in the early 2000s, electric cars were not exciting. In fact, many people believed they were a joke. They were often slow. Their batteries had limited range. Charging stations were extremely rare. Some models looked unusual, and many drivers assumed electric vehicles would never compete with gasoline-powered cars. The world's biggest car companies had decades of experience. They had giant factories, global supply chains, thousands of engineers, billions of dollars. Against them stood a small startup with a bold dream: build an electric car that people would actually want to drive. Tesla Motors had been founded in 2003 by engineers Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Elon Musk joined the company in 2004 as its largest early investor after leading a major funding round. He also became chairman of the board and played an increasingly active role in shaping the company's product direction. From the beginning, Elon believed Tesla should not build a cheap, basic electric car first. That surprised many people. Wouldn't it make more sense to create the most affordable vehicle possible? Elon's thinking was different. New technology is expensive at first. Instead of competing immediately with inexpensive gasoline cars, Tesla would first build a premium sports car. If that car proved, electric vehicles could be fast, beautiful, and exciting. The company could eventually use the knowledge and profits to build more affordable models. It was a step-by-step strategy. Start small, prove the technology, improve it, reduce costs, reach more people. It sounded logical, but turning the plan into reality proved incredibly difficult. Designing a modern car is one of the most complex engineering challenges in manufacturing. Thousands of individual parts must work together perfectly. Every door, every battery cell, every wire, every motor, every brake, every software update, every safety system. If just one component fails, the customer notices. Tesla also faced another enormous challenge: batteries. At the time, many experts believed batteries could never provide enough range for practical electric cars. Drivers worried constantly. What if I run out of power? How far can I travel? How long will charging take? Tesla engineers worked day and night searching for better solutions. They experimented, tested, failed, improved, repeated. Meanwhile, costs continued rising. Building prototypes required money. Testing required money. Hiring engineers required money. Factories required enormous amounts of money. Even small delays became expensive. Then came another challenge: leadership disagreements inside the company. Building a startup places enormous pressure on everyone involved. People disagree about design, about manufacturing, about timing, about spending. Those disagreements eventually led to major leadership changes. In 2008, Elon Musk became Tesla's CEO. It was not a comfortable victory. It happened during one of the most stressful periods in the company's history. Tesla was already struggling financially. Production delays frustrated customers. Costs exceeded expectations. Investors became nervous. The company seemed to burn cash almost as quickly as it raised it. Some critics predicted Tesla would never deliver enough cars to survive. Others argued that large automakers would simply copy any useful ideas once electric. Vehicles became profitable. Many believed Tesla had no future. Then, the global financial crisis arrived. Banks collapsed. Stock markets fell sharply. Businesses closed. Investors became extremely cautious. Finding new funding became far more difficult than before. For Tesla, the timing could hardly have been worse. The company desperately needed additional capital, but the entire financial world was suddenly trying to avoid risk. Imagine trying to convince investors to support a young electric car company at the exact moment when the global economy is falling apart. That was Elon's challenge. Inside Tesla's offices, employees worked tirelessly. Many believed deeply in the mission. They wanted to prove that sustainable transportation was possible. They wanted to build cars that were not only environmentally cleaner but also exciting to drive. Still, belief alone could not pay suppliers. Belief alone could not build factories. Belief alone could not cover payroll. Every week, executives examined financial reports. Every week, the numbers looked frightening. Money was disappearing fast. At the same time, Elon was dividing his attention between Tesla and SpaceX. One company built rockets. The other built electric cars. Both required constant decisions. Both demanded leadership. Both consumed enormous amounts of cash. Many people told him the same thing. Choose one. Save one company. Let the other go. It sounded practical, perhaps even wise, but Elon refused. He believed both missions mattered. One aimed to secure humanity's future on Earth through sustainable transportation. The other aimed to secure humanity's long-term future beyond Earth. To him, they were connected, and he was unwilling to abandon either dream. What happened next would push him further than he had ever been pushed before. If there is one month that defines Elon Musk's career, it is December 2008. Everything you have heard so far, the lonely childhood, the bullying, the endless reading, the coding, Zip-R, PayPal, SpaceX, Tesla, every chapter led to this moment. December 2008 was not simply a difficult month. It was a crossroads. One path led to failure. The other would eventually change history. By late Arlinglingba, SpaceX had already failed its first 3 Falcon 1 launches. Each launch had consumed precious money. The company could afford only one more attempt, one final chance. There would be no 5th opportunity if the 4th mission failed. Meanwhile, Tesla's financial situation was equally desperate. The company was approaching the point where it could no longer meet its obligations. Employees wondered whether their paychecks would continue. Suppliers worried about unpaid invoices. Potential investors hesitated. The global financial crisis made raising money extraordinarily difficult. Almost everywhere Elon looked, doors were closing. And then came another painful reality. His own personal fortune was nearly gone. Many people assume that wealthy entrepreneurs keep most of their money safely in the bank. Elon did the opposite. He repeatedly invested his personal wealth into his companies. Again, and again, and again. By the end of 2008, he had committed nearly all the money he had earned from the sale of PayPal. He later explained that he had become so short of cash that he borrowed money for personal living expenses from friends and had to make difficult choices about everyday bills. Imagine that. A man the public believed was incredibly rich, privately wondering how he would cover his own expenses. That contrast reveals something important. We often judge success from the outside. We see headlines, photographs, company valuations. We rarely see the sleepless nights, the fear, the uncertainty, the private sacrifices. Inside SpaceX, preparations continued for the 4th Falcon 1 launch. Engineers reviewed every lesson from the previous failures, every error, every damaged component, every unexpected event. Nothing was ignored. The pressure was overwhelming. Some employees quietly admitted they had never felt so much responsibility. They understood what was at stake. If Falcon 1 failed again, Years of work would disappear. Yet, despite the pressure, something remarkable happened. The team stayed focused. They trusted data instead of panic. They trusted engineering instead of emotion. On September 28, 2008, Falcon 1 lifted off for the fourth time. The rocket climbed into the sky. Stage separation occurred successfully. Minutes passed. Then confirmation arrived. Falcon 1 had reached orbit. For the first time in history, a privately developed, liquid-fueled rocket had successfully reached Earth orbit. Celebration erupted. Some engineers hugged. Others cried. Years of failure had finally produced success. It was one of the greatest engineering achievements ever accomplished by a young private aerospace company. But the victory did not instantly solve every financial problem. SpaceX still needed customers. Fortunately, that success transformed the company's reputation. Soon afterward, NASA awarded SpaceX a major commercial resupply services contract worth approximately $1 billion to transport cargo to the International Space Station. The contract did more than provide funding. It provided credibility. It told the world that a young private company could become a trusted partner in space exploration. At nearly the same time, Tesla was still racing against the clock. Negotiations with investors continued almost until the final days of December. According to several accounts, crucial financing was finalized just before Christmas, giving Tesla the funds it needed to continue operating. It was an incredibly narrow escape. Just days earlier, the outcome had remained uncertain. Two companies, two different industries, both standing at the edge of collapse, both surviving by the smallest of margins. Looking back today, it is easy to think success was inevitable. It was not. History often feels predictable only after it has already happened. In December 2008, no one knew what the future would bring. No one knew whether Tesla would become the world's most valuable automaker. No one knew whether SpaceX would routinely launch astronauts into orbit. No one knew reusable rockets would land upright on floating platforms. Those achievements still belonged to the future. At the time, there was only relief. Relief that the companies were still alive. Relief that the employees still had jobs. Relief that one more chapter could be written. For Elon Musk, December 2008 became proof of something he had believed since childhood. Failure does not always mean the end. Sometimes, failure is simply the price you pay before your breakthrough arrives. When the calendar turned to 2009, Elon Musk finally had something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. Not certainty. Not comfort. Just hope. Both Tesla and SpaceX had survived one of the darkest periods in their history. But surviving was only the beginning. Now they had to prove they deserved to exist. For Tesla, the challenge was clear. The company had to show the world that electric cars were not a temporary experiment. They had to become real products for real customers. The Tesla Roadster had already attracted attention. It could travel much farther on a single charge than many people believed possible. It accelerated quickly. It looked stylish. It challenged the old stereotype that electric cars had to be slow and boring. People who drove the Roadster often reacted with surprise. This is electric? They expected something quiet and weak. Instead, they experienced instant acceleration, smooth performance, modern technology. The Roadster was never meant to become a mass-market vehicle. It served another purpose. It changed people's imagination. It showed that electric vehicles could com P-E-T-E with T-R-A-D-I-T-I-O-N-A-L, sports cars in excitement as well as innovation. That success gave Tesla confidence. The company now aimed at something much bigger, a premium electric sedan. This project would become the Model S. Building the Model S required enormous effort. Tesla could not simply copy existing cars. The battery pack, the software, the electric motors, the manufacturing process. Almost everything needed to be designed from the ground up. The engineers faced challenge after challenge. Every improvement revealed another problem waiting to be solved. Designing a safer battery system, improving efficiency, increasing driving range, reducing production costs, perfecting software, testing, retesting, testing again. At times, progress felt painfully slow, but every small improvement moved the company closer to its goal. Elon remained deeply involved. He reviewed engineering decisions, questioned assumptions, visited the factory floor, asked difficult questions. He believed details mattered. Some employees admired his relentless pursuit of excellence. Others found his expectations exhausting. Both opinions could be true at the same time. Leadership under extreme pressure is rarely simple. Meanwhile, SpaceX was entering an entirely new chapter. The NASA contract meant the company finally had a chance to demonstrate that private companies could reliably support space missions. The engineers immediately turned their attention to a larger rocket, Falcon 9. Compared with Falcon 1, Falcon 9 was a giant leap forward. It featured 9 powerful Merlin engines in its first stage. It was designed to carry much heavier payloads. Eventually, it would transport astronauts and cargo to orbit. Building Falcon 9 required years of engineering. Every lesson from Falcon 1 shaped the new design. Nothing was taken for granted. Engineers constantly asked, "What failed before? How can we prevent that from happening again?" Failure had become a teacher, not an enemy. In June 2010, Falcon 9 launched successfully for the first time. The achievement attracted worldwide attention. For many critics, it was the moment they began taking SpaceX seriously. The startup that had once suffered 3 failed launches was now proving it could build reliable orbital rockets. But Elon was already thinking beyond simple launches. His next goal sounded even more unbelievable. Bring the rocket back. Most rockets are used once. After carrying their payload into space, they fall into the ocean or burn up in the atmosphere. Imagine buying a new airplane, flying it once, then throwing it away. That is essentially how spaceflight had worked for decades. Elon believed this approach made little economic sense. Reusable rockets, he argued, could dramatically reduce the cost of space travel. Many experts doubted it. Landing a rocket vertically seemed almost impossible. The rocket would be descending at tremendous speed. It would need to restart its engines, control its movement, balance perfectly. Any mistake would destroy the vehicle. Some people compared the idea to balancing a pencil on your fingertip during an earthquake. The challenge was extraordinary, but SpaceX engineers embraced it. Prototype after prototype flew. Many exploded. Some tipped over. Others crashed into the ground. Videos of spectacular failures spread across the internet. Critics laughed again. But inside SpaceX, every explosion generated valuable information. Every crash answered another engineering question. Elon often reminded his teams that if they were not occasionally failing, they probably were not trying anything truly difficult. It was not an excuse for carelessness. It was recognition that genuine innovation carries genuine risk. The culture at SpaceX became known for moving quickly. Build, test, learn, improve, repeat, again, again, again. That relentless cycle slowly transformed impossible ideas into practical engineering. For the first time in many years, the future looked brighter. Yet success created a new kind of pressure. Now the world expected even greater achievements. And Elon Musk was already preparing for the next impossible challenge. Success has a strange effect. When you fail repeatedly, people ask whether you should quit. When you finally succeed, many people begin saying they believed in you all along. Reality is usually more complicated. By the early 2010s, public opinion about Elon Musk was changing. Not everyone became a supporter. Far from it. But many people who had once dismissed his ideas started paying closer attention. Tesla introduced the Model S in 2012. It quickly earned praise from automotive journalists. Reviewers admired its performance, its long electric driving range, its large touchscreen, its over-the-air software updates, its safety features. Many experts described it as one of the best cars they had ever tested. Not simply one of the best electric cars. That distinction mattered. Tesla no longer wanted customers to buy its vehicles out of environmental concern alone. It wanted people to choose them because they were outstanding automobiles. The strategy worked. Sales increased. Interest grew. Other car manufacturers began accelerating their own electric vehicle programs. In many ways, Tesla had helped push the entire automotive industry toward electrification. SpaceX was making headlines as well. In Arling, the Dragon spacecraft successfully delivered cargo to the International Space Station, becoming the first commercial spacecraft to complete such a mission. It was another historic milestone. For decades, many people believed only governments could accomplish this kind of work. SpaceX demonstrated that private companies could become essential partners in space exploration. The company's reputation grew rapidly. NASA trusted it with increasingly important missions. Commercial satellite operators became customers. International interest expanded. Yet Elon remained focused on a much larger dream: Mars. Whenever interviewers asked about his long-term vision, he often returned to the same idea: making humanity a multi-planetary species. Some audiences applauded, others remained skeptical. Mars still seemed unimaginably far away. But if there was one lesson people had learned by now, it was this: dismissing Elon's ideas too quickly had become risky. Several of his impossible projects had already become reality. There was another side to this growing success. As Tesla and SpaceX expanded, expectations increased dramatically. Investors demanded growth. Customers expected perfection. Employees worked under intense pressure. The media examined every decision, every product delay, every public statement, every launch, every vehicle recall, every financial report. Fame magnifies everything. Victories become larger. Mistakes become louder. Elon himself became one of the most recognizable business leaders in the world. His interviews attracted millions of viewers. His social media posts generated headlines. Supporters praised his ambition. Critics questioned his management style, public behavior, or business decisions. Few people felt completely neutral. That level of attention can be difficult for anyone. Every sentence may be analyzed, every action interpreted, every decision debated. Through it all, Elon continued working at an extraordinary pace. He often described dividing his time between multiple companies. One day, discussing rocket engines, the next reviewing battery technology, then meeting software engineers, then speaking with manufacturing teams. His schedule amazed many observers. Some wondered how one person could manage so many complex projects. Others argued that strong teams deserved equal recognition for turning ambitious ideas into reality. Both perspectives highlight an important truth. No great company succeeds because of one individual alone. Vision matters. Leadership matters. But engineers, designers, technicians, factory workers, scientists, software developers, and countless other professionals also transform ideas into reality. Tesla and SpaceX became successful because thousands of talented people worked toward shared goals. Even so, Elon's willingness to pursue unusually ambitious missions remained one of the driving forces behind both companies. The little boy who once escaped into books had grown into a man whose ideas influenced industries around the globe. But his story was far from over. In fact, he was about to expand beyond electric cars and rockets into new fields that would once again surprise the world. By the middle of the 2010s, Elon Musk had already achieved what many people spend an entire lifetime trying to accomplish. He had helped build a successful internet company. He had transformed electric vehicles from a niche idea into a global movement. He had proven that a private company could launch rockets into orbit. For most entrepreneurs, that would have been enough. But Elon rarely thinks in terms of one company. He thinks in terms of systems. When he looked at the future, he did not see transportation, energy, or space as separate industries. He saw them as pieces of one larger puzzle. Imagine a family living in a modern home. The roof collects sunlight. Solar panels convert that sunlight into electricity. A battery stores extra energy for nighttime. An electric car sits in the garage. The family charges the car using clean electricity produced at home. No gasoline. Lower emissions. A connected energy system. This was the future Elon imagined. That vision led to greater involvement in solar energy. Solar technology had existed for many years, but it still faced important challenges. Many people believed it was too expensive. Others worried about reliability. Some simply disliked the appearance of traditional solar panels. Elon believed renewable energy needed to become both practical and attractive. The goal was not simply to protect the environment. It was to create products people genuinely wanted to own. In 2016, Tesla acquired SolarCity, a company founded by Elon's cousins that focused on solar energy. The acquisition was controversial. Supporters argued it would create a fully integrated, sustainable energy company. Critics questioned whether it was the right financial decision at the time. This disagreement reflected something that had followed Elon throughout his career. Nearly every major decision divided opinion. Some people saw bold vision. Others saw unnecessary risk. History would continue to judge those choices over time. Another subject also captured Elon's attention: artificial intelligence. Long before AI became part of everyday conversation, Elon warned that powerful AI systems could create serious risks if developed without careful oversight. His comments surprised many people. How could someone who loved technology also warn about its dangers? The answer was simple. He did not oppose technological progress. He believed progress should be accompanied by responsibility. Technology is like fire. Fire can cook food, heat homes, power industries. But without careful control, fire can also cause destruction. Elon often argued that artificial intelligence should be developed in ways that benefit humanity as a whole. In Arling, he became one of the early supporters involved in the creation of OpenAI, an organization originally established to advance AI research for broad public benefit. In later years, Elon and OpenAI followed separate paths and publicly disagreed on several issues. But his early involvement reflected his growing interest in the future of artificial intelligence. His curiosity did not stop there. He also became involved with Neuralink. The company's goal sounded almost unbelievable: develop technology that could create direct communication between the human brain and computers. For many people, this sounded like science fiction. Questions immediately appeared. Could such technology help people with paralysis? Could it restore communication for patients with severe neurological conditions? Could it eventually change the relationship between humans and machines? Researchers began exploring these possibilities carefully, recognizing that the field involved both exciting opportunities and significant scientific, ethical, and medical challenges. Around the same period, Elon introduced another company called the Boring Company. Its purpose was unusual. Instead of building upward, why not build downward? Traffic congestion wastes enormous amounts of time. Roads become crowded. Cities continue growing, Elon proposed that underground transportation, tunnels, could become one solution in certain situations. Some people laughed at the idea. Others pointed out that tunneling had existed for centuries. But Elon argued that faster and less expensive tunneling methods might expand future transportation options. Whether discussing rockets, batteries, tunnels, or artificial intelligence, one pattern remained remarkably consistent. He searched for problems that affected millions or even billions of people. Then he asked, "Can this be done differently?" Sometimes the answer was yes. Sometimes the answer remained uncertain. But he rarely stopped asking the question. That curiosity had begun in Pretoria decades earlier. The little boy reading encyclopedias had become a man still searching for difficult questions. Yet, with growing influence came growing controversy. The larger his companies became, the more closely the world watched every decision. Every remarkable success story has another side, the side people often avoid discussing. Success creates admiration. It also creates criticism. Elon Musk's career is no exception. As Tesla and SpaceX expanded into global companies employing thousands of people, leadership became increasingly complex. Running one startup is difficult. Running several multinational companies at the same time is something very few people have ever attempted. Employees often described Elon as intensely demanding. He expected long hours, fast decisions, constant improvement. He disliked unnecessary meetings. He disliked excuses. He frequently challenged engineers to rethink designs from the beginning instead of accepting traditional methods. Some employees found this approach deeply motivating. They believed impossible goals encouraged extraordinary innovation. Others found the pace exhausting. Some left because the pressure became too great. Both experiences can exist inside the same organization. Leadership affects different people in different ways. Another characteristic became widely known. Elon often set extremely ambitious deadlines. Sometimes these goals inspired teams to move faster. Other times, projects required much longer than originally predicted. Engineering rarely follows a perfect schedule. Unexpected technical problems appear. Testing reveals hidden weaknesses. Manufacturing introduces new challenges. As a result, several important projects experienced delays. Critics argued that Elon regularly promised products earlier than they arrived. Supporters responded that ambitious goals helped accelerate innovation even when timelines slipped. This debate continues today. Tesla itself faced enormous manufacturing challenges. When production of the Model 3 increased dramatically, the company entered what Elon later called production hell. Factories struggled to keep pace. Robots sometimes created unexpected problems. Supply chains became stressed. Employees worked long shifts trying to increase production. At one point, Elon reportedly spent many nights sleeping inside Tesla's factory. Why? Because he wanted to stay close to the production lines. If a machine stopped working at 2 o'clock in the morning, he wanted to know immediately. Some observers admired this dedication. Others questioned whether such an intense work culture was healthy or sustainable. Again, opinions differed. SpaceX experienced similar pressure. Rocket launches require extraordinary precision. Safety cannot be compromised. Even after years of success, every launch still carried risk. Engineers continued testing relentlessly. Failures occasionally occurred. Instead of hiding them, SpaceX often analyzed them publicly, improving future designs. Perhaps the most famous example involved reusable rockets. Early landing attempts ended with dramatic explosions. Videos showed rockets tipping over, crashing into drone ships, or exploding after touching the ground. The internet quickly transformed these failures into memes and jokes. But the engineers kept working. Eventually, one rocket landed successfully. Then another. Then another. What had once seemed impossible gradually became routine. Today, watching a Falcon booster return and land vertically amazes millions of viewers around the world. That achievement reminds us of an important lesson. People often celebrate the final success. They rarely remember the long chain of failures that made it possible. Elon also became one of the world's most recognizable public figures. Every interview attracted headlines. Every speech generated discussion. Every social media post spread rapidly across the internet. Supporters praised his willingness to speak openly. Critics argued that some public comments created unnecessary controversy. The reality is that highly visible leaders often receive both admiration and criticism at the same time. That attention can influence stock prices, public opinion, business partnerships, employee morale. Very few entrepreneurs experience such constant global scrutiny. Yet, despite the criticism, one fact became increasingly difficult to ignore. Industries were changing. Major automobile manufacturers invested billions in electric vehicles. Private space companies expanded rapidly. Governments partnered more frequently with commercial aerospace firms. Renewable energy continued growing. Whether people admired Elon Musk or questioned his methods, many agreed that his companies had influenced the direction of several major industries. Looking back, it is remarkable to remember where the story began. A shy boy, a victim of bullying, a child who escaped into books, a teenager teaching himself computer programming. None of those experiences guaranteed future success, but together they built resilience, curiosity, persistence, and an unusual willingness to keep moving forward after failure. The greatest chapter of this story is not simply about becoming wealthy. It is about refusing to let repeated setbacks define your future. And perhaps that is the lesson that reaches far beyond rockets, electric cars, or billion-dollar companies. It is a lesson about the power of continuing, even when almost everyone else believes you should stop. Take a moment. Close your eyes for just a second. Imagine that quiet little boy in Pretoria once again. The child sitting alone with a book. The boy who was often misunderstood. The student who walked into school, not knowing whether he would be laughed at that day. The 12-year-old writing computer code while many children were playing outside. If you could stand beside that young boy and whisper one sentence into his ear, What would you say? Would you tell him that one day he would build rockets that return safely to Earth? Would you tell him that millions of people would drive electric cars inspired by his company's technology? Would you tell him that his name would appear in newspapers almost every day? Would you tell him that he would become one of the wealthiest people in modern history? He probably wouldn't believe you. Not because he lacked imagination, but because the distance between that lonely child and that future seemed almost impossible to cross. Yet life often moves in unexpected ways. One small decision leads to another. One book inspires one idea. One idea becomes one project. One project becomes one company. One company changes an industry, and one industry can influence the world. That is why Elon Musk's story is much larger than a story about money. Money appears throughout this documentary. Millions, billions, investments, companies, acquisitions. But if we focus only on the numbers, we miss the deeper story. The deeper story is about persistence. Think about how many times he failed. He experienced painful bullying as a child. He left his home country with uncertainty about the future. He lived with very little money while starting his first company. He slept in his office because he could not afford a comfortable lifestyle. He was replaced as CEO of PayPal. SpaceX failed its first 3 rocket launches. Tesla nearly collapsed during the global financial crisis. Again and again. The easier choice would have been to quit. Many intelligent people told him that his ideas were unrealistic. Some investors walked away. Some journalists predicted failure. Some experts insisted certain goals could never be achieved. Yet he continued asking the same question. Is it impossible? Or has nobody solved it yet? That question reveals something important. Great innovators do not ignore reality. They study reality carefully. Then they ask whether reality can be improved. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes physics says no. Sometimes economics says no. Sometimes technology is simply not ready. But sometimes the answer is yes. If enough people work together, if enough engineers keep improving, if enough scientists keep experimenting, if enough failures become lessons instead of endings. Throughout this story, one pattern appeared over and over again. Failure, learning, improvement, progress. Not perfection, progress. That distinction matters. Many people wait until they feel completely ready before beginning something important. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect plan. But life rarely offers perfection. Elon Musk did not build successful companies because everything went according to plan. In many cases, almost nothing went according to plan. What mattered was the willingness to adapt, to learn, to improve, to continue. Another lesson comes from curiosity. Remember the encyclopedia, the endless books, the nights spent reading science fiction? Learning became a habit long before success arrived. Curiosity prepared him for opportunities that did not yet exist. Knowledge rarely provides immediate rewards. Sometimes you read a book today, and only 10 years later, Do you realize how valuable that knowledge has become? For English learners, this lesson is especially meaningful. Every new word you learn today becomes part of your future. Every story you listen to strengthens your listening skills. Every sentence you understand builds confidence. Progress may feel slow, but slow progress is still progress. Perhaps today you understood 70% of this documentary. That is wonderful. Next month, you may understand 80%. Later, 90%. Language learning is not about perfection. It is about consistency. That is why stories are such powerful teachers. Stories help vocabulary stay in your memory. Stories connect words with emotions. Stories make learning enjoyable. Before we finish, let's reflect on a few useful words you heard throughout today's documentary. Persistence means continuing even when something is difficult. Elon showed persistence after repeated business failures. Innovation means creating new ideas, methods, or products. Tesla and SpaceX became known for innovation. Resilience means recovering after hardship or disappointment. His childhood and early career demanded enormous resilience. Vision means the ability to imagine a future that does not yet exist. Many successful leaders are remembered because of their vision. Opportunity is a favorable chance to achieve something. Elon believed the Internet created a historic opportunity. During the determination means refusing to give up despite obstacles. Determination appears in almost every chapter of his life. Try using these words in your own English conversations. The more you use them, the more naturally they become part of your vocabulary. As we reach the end of this journey, it is worth remembering one final truth. No documentary can capture every detail of a person's life. Every public figure is complex. Every entrepreneur makes good decisions and mistakes. Every leader receives praise and criticism. Elon Musk is no exception. People around the world continue to debate his leadership style, his public statements, and many of his business decisions. Reasonable people can disagree about those topics, but regardless of those opinions, one historical fact is difficult to deny. His companies have had a major influence on electric vehicles, commercial spaceflight, satellite technology, and the global conversation about humanity's future. That influence will continue to be studied for many years. And perhaps the most inspiring part of his story has nothing to do with wealth. It is the reminder that your starting point does not determine your destination. A bullied child can become an inventor. A young programmer can become an entrepreneur. A failed rocket can eventually reach orbit. A nearly bankrupt company can grow into a global business. And someone learning English today can become a confident English speaker tomorrow. One sentence, one conversation, one story at a time. Thank you for spending this time with us on StorySpeak English. If this documentary helped you improve your English while learning the remarkable story of Elon Musk, we'd love to have you join us again. Leave a comment telling us which chapter inspired you the most. What lesson will you remember? Persistence? Curiosity? Persilience? Or the courage to keep going when success seems impossible? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to StorySpeak English, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring true story designed to improve your English naturally. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, every great story begins with someone who refuses to give up.